2025 is a tough time to be a software engineer. Layoffs, economic uncertainty, and of course, the elephant in the room, AI, it's all making it tougher to get hired, or if you have a job, it's making that more difficult because management's expecting more from less people. First, let's start with the truth about where we're at. Layoffs are still hitting us pretty hard this year. Fortunately, those numbers have come down over the past couple years since their peak in 2023, and 2025 is looking like it'll be even a little bit less than last year, but the numbers still aren't great, and we're still seeing layoffs on a regular basis. Second, there's just overall economic uncertainty, and that's making companies defensive in general. The world is changing at a fast pace, technology is changing at a pace we've never seen before in our civilization, and uncertainty causes companies to be slow to hire or to tighten their belts and lay people off. And the biggest cause of all this technological change is, of course, generative AI, which is also having an oversized impact on the software engineering job market. Management is being oversold on the productivity gains you can get from using an AI to code your apps, and so now they're cutting back software developers and expecting the existing developers to do all this extra work. So what are some positive takeaways we can get from this situation? Well, the first one I think is that ultimately everything that's driving this change is still tech. And the tech sector itself is the reason the stock market is still booming. And so since technology is driving everything and software engineers ultimately are driving the software side of the tech business, we're still in demand. We're still going to be needed. Even if right now the job market isn't great for us, it's just a matter of time until it gets better. Ultimately, this is just a cyclical thing that happens. I've been around long enough to see this kind of cycle happen multiple times. I was not far out of college when the dot-com bubble originally burst in the early 2000s. At that point, companies were going bankrupt, everyone was laying people off, companies were tightening their belts, and sure enough, a couple years later, things bounced back pretty quickly. Fast forward a couple years later, the entire global economy collapsed during the Great Recession. And again, same thing, late 2000s, companies were going bankrupt, people were laying off, there was less spending, job market was tough. But a few years after that, everything rebounded and we entered into a bull market that lasted for the last 15 years, essentially. Right now, we're in a similar part of that cycle that we were in at the dot-com burst and the Great Recession, where we're in this heavy dip, and this one's caused by all the heavy hiring that happened a few years ago. Around the pandemic, we had a whole lot of new software developers entering the field, and at the same time, we had a lot of hiring happening. Between 2020 and 2022, we saw this huge boom in hiring in the tech industry, and it was an unsustainable boom of hiring. So now we're kind of seeing the hangover of that. People have hired too many devs for probably paying way too much money for the skill set that they had. So now they're looking to reduce their workforce, get rid of the extra devs, find those that are overpaid and get rid of those as well. And so everything's adjusting, which is going to be, again, probably a several year long problem, but we're at this point 2 years into it. So it could be another year or two and then things will rebound again. I know a year or two is kind of a long time, but it's at least there is hope at the end, at the end of this problem. There's a light at the end of this tunnel. Another positive is that even in the news, from economic leaders, we are seeing some positive signs towards tech and the tech industry itself. Even though the job market right now isn't great, tech is still one of the best places to be in. Last month, the Fed chairman, Jerome Powell, he said something along the lines of that, those with tech skills will probably do great in the new economy, but also warned if you don't have those skills, you're increasingly left with less attractive employment options. In other words, when things pick up, those of us that have tech skills, and software engineers are obviously going to be strongly in that category, we're going to be at the front of the line for new opportunities. Also, just this week, there was the chief economist at Goldman Sachs, Jan Hatzius. He said this: history suggests that labor demand, especially in routine cognitive occupations, but perhaps also more broadly, is likely to decline further with increased AI penetration. And what this means, or what I take this to mean, is that, yes, AI is obviously going to be taking jobs, but it's going to be the ones that are more routine cognitively, meaning those that don't take a lot of creative problem solving, a lot of thinking. So maybe I'd be worried if I was doing data entry, or if the extent of my coding skills was I'm able to write a several line Python script to move data from one place to another. These are the kind of things that AI is very well suited right now anyway to replace. But if you're talking about actually replacing experienced software engineers, building and maintaining decades worth of applications and complexity, AI is just not there yet. It's a tool that can help software developers get more productive in specific areas of their work, but it's certainly not going to be giving these productivity gains that they're promising from AI companies, like, double your productivity or whatever numbers they're giving right now. So, bottom line, these quotes are very encouraging because they're still showing that, in my opinion, our software engineering jobs, the overall industry is still very safe and has a long-term outlook that's still very good. And finally, as I just said, AI coding, that is still very overrated. So even though generative AI is being very transformative in a lot of industries, I still think that with regard to coding and programming, it's not there yet. The expectation is that it's able to completely replace developers, or at the very least, double or triple their productivity. And what we're currently seeing is that for some developers, you can get up to maybe a 30% boost in your productivity. If you're a very senior developer, it might actually even hurt your productivity if you're not using it correctly. I personally think that, it's turning into a tool that's going to maybe give you 10, 20% boost in productivity. That's not enough to just start laying people off. And with all the tightening that's happening in the last, couple of years, the companies are going to eventually realize that if they want to get more work done, throwing AI at the problem is not going to solve it. They're going to have to hire more people because they need people to look at the code, to manage the applications, to make sure that stuff's actually production ready. We've already seen horror stories of AIs deleting production databases, writing in massive security holes that allow credit cards and information to be stolen. So these are the kind of things that we've already seen in the wild, and who knows what else is out there just waiting to be exploited that was written by AI. If you're a company that is risk averse, or if you want to actually make sure you have good security, good privacy controls, right now, entrusting AI with your entire application is too risky and it's not worth the cost of just hiring another extra dev or two to make sure things run smoothly. So that's, again, in my opinion, great news for us. And until AI gets to a point where it can completely replace someone, we're safe. So what is some practical advice that you can use during these challenging times? Well, the first one is to improve your own skills. Focus on learning things that you see in the job market that are in demand. So for instance, if you're looking for a job and on the job boards, you keep seeing some technology or programming language or whatever that you don't know, and you keep seeing it come up over and over again, look into it, try it out, maybe make your own project and add it to your portfolio. Another option is to go and get certifications. If you want to learn AWS, go and do one of the free AWS certifications so you can learn a skill and then actually make yourself more marketable by saying you have this certification that proves you have at least gone through the training for that technology. Second, you should also improve your network. Meet people, go to networking events on LinkedIn, connect with people that you've met in real life or that you've worked with. Building up a network will help it make it easier for you to get a job in the future. Finally, you could try something like, entrepreneurship or being a solopreneur. Build projects in public on social media so you can, people will be able to connect with you and you can share information about what your process is and learn from other people doing similar things. You can, use this kind of process to build your own personal brand, which gives you more visibility, and more visibility means more opportunities for companies and recruiters to find you and want to talk to you. So these are all positive ways to spend time right now, even though the job market is challenging, to still build yourself up and build up your currency in the tech world. So, in conclusion, even though things are really challenging right now, the tech industry still has huge benefits. You have the option to remote work, hopefully. It's the work itself is rewarding and fun. You have obviously, the pay is still really good, especially compared to many other things that are out there, and the skills themselves, the jobs themselves, are going to be continue to be in demand for a very long time. So even though it's tough now, just keep in mind it's cyclical and it will return back to normal. So if you're still interested in tech in a year or two, I think we're going to see that things are going to get a lot better. That's my opinion. Anyway, that's the end of the video. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing to my channel. It really helps me out. I'm trying to grow this, trying to grow my own personal brand. And if you liked it, hit the like button. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next video.